Will today's headphone get your heart pounding like an 808? What's cracking, everyone? My name is Ryan, and today we are going to take a deep dive into a newly released open-back dynamic driver headphone from Fostex, the Fostex TH808. Now, the 808 retails in at $1,299.99 and shares some very tough competition in this price category. Before we dive in, though, I do want to send a big thank you out to Audio 46, who sent over the 808 so I could get all of my thoughts and my opinions out on this headphone. I'd also like to take this moment to mention that Audio 46 not only has an excellent online audio store, but they are located right in Times Square, New York, right off of 46th Street. Stop in, check out some of the demos of your favorite gear, and make sure to listen to Chocolate Chip Trip by Tool while doing so. Hey guys, just a quick reminder to subscribe to the channel and like the videos if you do like them. Also, I do have a Patreon if you'd like to support me there and get in on the conversations through my Telegram chat. By the way, thank you to all my Patreon subscribers so far. Now, let's get back to the video. The TH808, like other Fostex, consists of wood on the cups. Now, this particular headphone has black walnut to be precise, along with a mostly aluminum chassis. The design of the grille is very pleasing, especially when filming in different angles and lighting. Fostex typically will use this single hinge system like we're seeing here. The 808 won't have any cup swivel, but there is slight tilt. Now, one thing that does bother me about the tilt is the clacking sound that it can make. I kind of wish they would have put a foam pad or something there to prevent that noise. Nonetheless, it's just a preference thing and honestly doesn't hurt anything on the headphone. Now, the pads and headband are leather-like material. The headband is a bit on the thin side for my taste. However, I do find it to be very comfortable on my head. Now, you'll also notice a very nice adjustment system here. It clicks in and out very well, and it stays in place. Now, the pads are angled and can rotate around the cups. You will see this stitching that should line up with this metal button-like screw that you can see on the yoke. Now, the pads also easily remove with a simple push and twist. Now, I gotta think this will make it possible to try out different pads in the future. When you do take the pads off, you will notice this foam ring on the outside of the driver. You can remove the ring. I would not suggest doing that to listen to this headphone, however, unless you'd rather this headphone not be called an 808. I mean, it makes it kind of like a 101. I don't know. Basically no bass at all. Now, the cable connection here is Fostex's own 2-pin that looks just like many of the Sennheiser 600 series of cables. However, they are not the same, so I wouldn't try to use a Sennheiser cable on this headphone. It is basically backwards polarity. Not sure if it would do any damage. I just wouldn't bother. Overall, the weight is 370 grams, and again, very comfortable for my head. I've spent hours with them on without any fatigue, hot spots, or headaches. The only thing I would say is the clamp force is not super tight, so they can slide a bit on your head when you're bobbing up and down to the 808s. Yes, I'll continue to reference that in this video, so suck it up, Buttercup. Lastly, in the box, you will get the headphone, a carrying bag, a pamphlet, and an unbalanced 6.3 terminated extra long cable. I like the cable for its build quality, but why so long? Fostex is not the only company to do this. I just personally would have rather had just a simple 5-foot cable, but it is what it is. So the driver on the 808 is utilizing the same type of in-house crafted driver that was used on the TH900 series. It is a 50mm neodymium driver that has a Biodyna diaphragm unit. Basically, it blends the biocellulose fiber with other materials on the diaphragm and apparently makes it very thin and brings you the Fostex sound that they intended. Now, it all comes together for just 25 ohms of impedance and 100 dB per milliwatt of sensitivity. So fairly easy to drive overall. So I've spent quite a bit of time listening to the 808. Most of that time spent has been with my Holo Cyan 2 DAC, along with my Holo Red streaming Tidal through Roon. Now the amps I used mostly consisted of the Cayin HA-8 and the Enlium 23RM. I did also use the HA-3A for a transformer coupled tube amplifier. I also used my Schiit stack of the Modius E and Midgard for a sub $500 impression. Now for portable units used, I used the iBasso DC Elite and a bit of the Woo Tube Mini. So it should come to no surprise when I say that synergy matters. I didn't really care for the Tube Mini paired up with the 808. My favorite pairing, however, outside of the incredible Enlium 23RM, was the IHA-8 with my Cyan 2. So most of my sound impressions was with that setup. I find the 808 to produce a decent amount of low end, somewhat living up to the naming. Now I say somewhat because I do find some fall off as it gets into the sub bass extension, but it's not bad at all. Upper bass I feel gets a bit of a boost, and that carries into the lower mids as well. I do find the mid range of this headphone to really be the star of the show, but it's not the entire story. As we travel into the highs, I do find that to be tapered off a little bit with peaks here and there that can be noticeable depending on the music that you're listening to. Now I'd almost classify the sound of this headphone as harmonious with a touch of darkness at times. Now careful, darkness can be an instant detractor, so let me explain further along with some track examples before passing judgment. First up is a track that really showcases what I think this headphone's best asset is: percussion instruments. The track is Pillar 1 by the Sandbox Percussion. This was a treat that really worked out the headphone's attack and speed. There is so much energy through this track and just feels very woody. It's very hard for me to describe exactly what that means, other than the feeling I get when I listen to a dynamic driver headphone that has this type of sound to them. Natural, just like the instruments used here. Now another track that showcases what this headphone doesn't do as much is the track Queen Mary by Francine 13. There is a bass line in this track that on some headphones is just very full and has that rumble. The Tungsten comes to mind right away for that rumble. Now the 808 has a lot of that attack at the first hit, but doesn't quite sustain or have rumble to it. There is body to the bass, but it's on the softer side if I had to classify it. Now I have found that quite a bit of genres that utilize drums can be a lot of fun with this as well, as in it can be very dynamic and energetic. Vocals are, for the most part, not too forward, and I didn't pick up shoutiness from this headphone, but there are times that I can pull out a bit of sibilance. The track Wreckage by Pearl Jam did show sibilance in his vocals. Adele is also a famous one for showcasing this. Speaking of Adele, I did find, at least with her voice, that it felt a bit too boosted with the mids. Her voice almost had that cupping feel to it, and not quite as much reverb and not as room filling. Now this is not to say the headphone is boxy, but some vocals can present a tad that way. This also leads me to say that I don't feel this headphone to be very large in staging as in width, but I do pick up decent depth. So mid-range and even treble resolution is honestly pretty damn impressive. Now before I move on, I think it's also important to note loudness. I find that headphones that can be a bit more mid-focused can behave differently depending on your volume. If you listen loud, I could see this becoming a bit more fatiguing and even a bit harsh. Now because I don't find them super wide, this can also lead to a more closed-in experience, I would imagine. Now I didn't personally experience this, but my loudness doesn't peak beyond 85 dB at most, if that helps. I could go on and on if I had more time and more gear as to comparing with this headphone. What I do have though is the Ario Organic and the Auteur Classic, both of which are right around the same price point of the 808 and in this room. In the case of the Organic, I actually find that headphone to be a good contrast or complement to the 808. You'll get a bit more extension out of the Organic, but it will also be brighter, cleaner, more of a defined sound versus the natural-like sound of the 808. You will also get some of that mid-forwardness to the music. Now, I find it to be more fatiguing in metal and hard rock type music over the 808. The 808 has that more dynamic, again, woodsy sound to it that can really pull you into the music. Even if it isn't wider in the stage, it is more of a cozier experience versus the latter. Then we have the Auteur Classic, the classic ZMF sound in my opinion. This one is closer than you would think to the 808. I do find the 808 to have more bass impact and extension than the Auteur. There is no denying the punchy sound of ZMF, however. I've always loved guitars and vocals on the Auteur Classic, and I think it can trade blows between which of these two headphones becomes more of a mid-forward type experience. For instance, with the artist Dominique Filzame, I found the 808 to be more intimate, where the Auteur presented more space. But then the opposite can happen on other artists. Now the Fostex may be easier to drive, but if you have OTL tube amps, that is just another enjoyable piece to the ZMF puzzle of sound. And as I've said before, there are plenty of more comparisons to be had here. The Focal Clear MG, LCD-X by Odyssey, hell, even the 109 Pro by Meze can be a compelling, though bigger step down in price to this headphone. I've honestly found myself quite a bit impressed with this headphone the more I have listened to it. If you are someone who prefers dynamic headphones to planars, I really think this is one that you need to check out. Also, if you are a fan of Fostex house sound and dig the looks, this is one to put in your radar. There have been a few things I didn't care for, and I've covered them throughout, but this is not one of those headphones I would flat out tell someone to pass on. I guess you could say there is no hate for the 808. Told you I wasn't done. Let me know in the comments down below what you think of this new Fostex headphone. What would you compare this against? Hopefully you enjoyed this video, or you can at least pretend you did. Please smash that like button, and I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel and even join my Patreon to support me along the way. I thank each and every one of you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.